John has been a great inspiration. John and Patricia have been a great inspiration to me. It's been, fantastic, the growth I've got through working with John and Patricia, and I thank them very much for giving me the opportunity for doing this today. Look, my name's Doug Wright, and I was involved in a pretty horrific crash back in 2012. I was, I'm a father of three. I've got three grown-up kids. I used to work in the mining industry in Queensland, fly in, fly out. Was my dream job. It was, it was something that I used to work 7 days on and had 7 days off. So it was a pretty cushy number. I used to fly in and fly out. So I'd fly into Emerald and go out to work and then come home, Wednesday on Wednesday. So that's a little bit about me. I've lived in Queensland for about 30 odd years, and it's a fantastic place, but it's also nice to come to Melbourne today and share my story with you guys. So, look, the reason I'm here today is, I want to give you some inspiration about, not giving up. It's about, what difference can people make in other people's lives. I think for me, we all need a mentor and we need a coach. Football teams use coaches every day. If coaches didn't work, why would football teams have coaches? So for me, it's all about how can I leverage off somebody else? And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I call it the cost of learning. And for me, the cost of learning is now is having a coach and spending time with these sort of people, and that can inspire me. And hopefully I can I know I am. I'm getting on with my life, and it's made a huge difference for me. Look, on the 18th of September 2012, I was in Middlemount, Queensland. I was to drive down to Biloela, which is about 350 kilometres from my campsite, and it was about 4 o'clock. It was bloody dark on a September morning in Queensland, and we got up. Matt was a subby that I was using at the time, and we were to go to Biloela to do some work on some of our machinery. I work for a company called Orica Mining Services, and we went and had breakfast, and we thought we'd get on the road about 5:30, and it was still dark. So we left Middlemount, went about 10 k's, and you came to a T intersection. And this T intersection was the Beef Road, so that took us south. So out to the left, I saw, there's a vehicle coming. And because I had Matt behind me, I thought, nah, it's all right. I'll wait. And it was quite a while. It was probably a minute. And I thought, gee, should I go? Should I not? Okay. No, I'll stay. So I stayed and let the guy come down, and I thought he'd go straight down the Beef Road, but he came back towards Middlemount, and I thought, I could have gone anyway. Anyway, we're driving along the road, all's good, and about half an hour into the trip, I just stuck the vehicle into cruise control. So we're doing 100 kilometres an hour. And I thought, this is all good. Sun's just coming up, 6 o'clock in the morning. Everything's all cool. Matt's behind me. Everything's going well. I thought, there's a vehicle. What's that vehicle doing? Just on a slight bend, and this vehicle's coming around, and it had stepped out over the shoulder of the road. And I thought, it's a bit strange. What's happening? Anyway, he's overcorrected and bang, straight on top of me. He's come head on. I thought, God, what's happened? So there's bells and whistles and what's going on? I don't know what's going on. Am I dead? I thought, am I dead? No, I'm not dead. I'm in pain. We've kept on going over the road, down this embankment, and come to a stop into some mud. Anyway, I'm thinking, what? I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I'll get JP to put some slides up if he can. So is that the first one, mate? That's the first one, yeah. Okay, so that's my truck. That's my truck when it's come in and hit some mud here. And the door is opened and I'm hanging out the door slightly. Thinking, Jesus, Doug, what's going on? And I thought, oh, have I broken my back? What's happened? So I thought, I couldn't feel my right leg. Oh, well, I can just feel my left leg. And I just started wiggling my toe. Oh, no, my back's not broken. Anyway, Maddie's running down the road. Dougie, you all right, mate? I said, oh, no, not really. Don't think so. He said, oh, what can I do? And I said, look, we need to get out. I said, I've got to get out of this. I can't. Anyway, at this time, we hadn't turned off the isolation switch. There's bells and whistles. And, everything's going off. So I didn't worry about that. I said, mate, up in the top of the truck, there's a crowbar. Go and grab the crowbar. So he grabbed the crowbar and he's pushing on the console to push so as I could get my leg out. Nah, couldn't do it. But it would release the pressure on my hip. I said, oh, that's all right. But he couldn't push anymore. So I said, mate, can you ring up emergency service? But before you do that, best you turn off the isolation switch, because I was worried that everything was going to catch on fire. So he turned off the isolation switch, and we probably should have done that beforehand. But anyway, we didn't. So he's gone up, and there's no service out there, right? So he had to jump up on top of his Land Cruiser and ring emergency services. So he ran back down and said, look, can you, they're coming. So an hour later, I heard the siren, and in the meantime, Matt's, consoling me, and I didn't know what had happened to the other guy. Can you go on to another slide, mate? So that's my truck. This is the culvert I thought the other guy was going to hit on the other side of the road. So go on to another one. So he's hit me right here, right in the driver's side. So yeah, keep on going. And there's so that's where I was sitting. And the next one should be his vehicle. So his vehicle is a Ford F-250, so a pretty decent sized wagon. And if you go to the next one, so there's no engine, right? So the engine's been taken out. Anyway, unbeknownst to me, this guy has hopped out of his vehicle and he's come down and he said, "G'day, mate, how you going?" I said, "Mate, please don't talk to me." I just wasn't in the mood to talk to anybody at this stage. Anyway, emergency services arrived about an hour later, or 3/4 of an hour later, and the guy gave me one of these yellow whistles, green whistles, or whatever it was. I said, "Mate, that's no good. I don't waste of time." So he said, "Look, we can't do anything. There's too, we don't know what the problem is. We don't know what, you've got spinal injuries. We don't know anything." So anyway, they grabbed they said, "No, that's fine. We'll get the fireys out." So the fireys had come. They came about another half an hour later. And also at that time, a helicopter came out of Mackay. And the doctor arrived and they checked me out and just, said, what's the problem? Where's it hurting? What can we do? Anyway, he gave me some painkillers. I don't know what it was, but he gave me some painkillers. And they proceeded to get me out of the crash. So I don't know whether you know, but with the jaws of life, every time they cut something, there's a jar. So they had to do 4 cuts with the jaws of life to get the doors off. So they cut through the hinges, and these are cast iron hinges with the jaws of life. So the bang, every time it's going bang, and it went straight through the vehicle, and I'm squashed in this vehicle. And every time this thing went bang, I'm going, oh my God, what's happening here? Anyway, they get me out of the vehicle, and we should have a nice picture here somewhere of my helicopter. So they've taken me to Mackay Hospital, and I was there for 2 days in intensive care. When I woke up, to my surprise, my wife was there, along with one of the guys who I used to work with Orica. And I just said, "Look, how long have I been here?" And they said, "Oh, you've been in here 2 days." I said, "Okay, cool." They couldn't do much in Mackay. They put this frame on my leg and it was to support everything. And then they put this leather belt around my waist, because what had happened was I had everything broken from basically my waist down. So I had pelvis was split in half, hip was smashed, right leg from the knee down, there was no bone, there was no nothing. And in the left leg, there was just a couple of broken bones. So all they could do was just stabilise me. So they stabilised me, stuck me on an aeroplane, and sent me down to Brisbane. So in flying to Brisbane, it was an issue because we couldn't get up very high. So we were only travelling at about 4,000 feet. And it took about 2.5 hours to get from Mackay to Brisbane. So, and normally it's only an hour. So they get me to Brisbane and they send me to the Royal Brisbane Hospital. What an amazing institution. It was so refreshing. You hear all these stories about our public health system, how, you know, it's underfunded, it's this and it's that. This was the most impressive unit of doctors that I didn't know anything about the health system at all, never been in it, but if that was our health system, I'm thinking we're doing the right thing. Anyway, we get down to the emergency services, and waiting there's a doctor, and Dr. Ashish Mohammed was his name, and he says, "Oh, Doug, you're going to have really good radio reception, mate. You're going to get telephone calls all over the place. I've got this big frame on my leg and it's sticking out." And we all chuckled, you know, because it was quite light. It was like, this guy's got a sense of humour. You know, we needed that. And my kids, my two boys are crying. Can I get a glass of water, please? And yeah, my two boys are crying, and I'm thinking, oh, what's going on? Anyway, we get, because the injuries were so horrific, I'd swollen up, and thanks, George. Cheers, man. Because the wounds were quite extensive, I had to have a fasciotomy on the right leg, which means I've cut from the top of my knee down to my ankle, just sliced it down to release the pressure. And they had to get the swelling down before they could do any operations. So in the meantime, I'm in the trauma ward. I was there for about 5 or 6 days and they couldn't do anything. So I'm lying on my back, never been in hospital before in my life. And I didn't know what to expect. So, you know, there's bedpans and there's catheters and there's all these tubes and everything coming. I think I had 5 tubes coming out of me. And it was like, oh my God, what's, you know. And your dignity goes out the window because you think, what's going on here? You know, you've got people coming in and bathing you and helping you go to the toilet. And you think, oh my God, these people are incredible. Anyway, 4 or 5 days after I get there, they started operating. So this is a frame. They call it a Taylor frame, or a Lazaroff was the original frame they used. And if you see here, it's got little dials like a dial gauge. And they actually stretch it so as it grows your bone. And that was on my leg for about 12 months. They only need to grow 10 mil of bone. If you go to the next slide, so you can see there, that was the main break in the bottom of the leg. So they had to grow that back. So they had this frame on my leg, and they started growing bone. I thought, wow. And this guy doesn't chop legs off. The doctor that I had with Kevin Tetz with doesn't chop legs off, doesn't chop any limbs off. Anyway, I was in the